Back when I was a kid, about 40 years ago, when you asked a child what they wanted to do when they grow up, the typical answers usually would be like policemen, firemen, teachers, astronaut. Nowadays, if you ask a kid what they wanted to do, you get a new category of answer, and that is the content creator. They want to be a Twitch streamer, a YouTuber, an Instagram model, TikTok star, I guess. But that's the thing. If you want to be a professional, these things would have to be your profession. That means you have to earn money from what you like to do. And as a guy with the extreme privilege of being an influencer, I think I'm in a very good position to kind of pull back the curtain to show you guys how it's actually like to make content creation a full-time job. Now, all of this will be from my perspective in the headphones and earphones industry, specifically reviewing product, but a lot of the topics that I'll be touching on is still very relevant in the influencer industry in general. On top of that, I'm just going to be talking about the money side. I'm not going to be talking about how to actually make it as an influencer, as a content creator. I think all of that is actually a topic for a completely different video. So in this video, I'll be talking about a person who has probably made it as a content creator, someone who already has a following, but still thinking about how exactly to monetize said following. So with all of that said, let's just jump right into it and let Uncle Crinacle destroy your hopes and dreams. So you want to review headphones, IEMs, amps, DACs, whatever. You probably thought about it, doing it on the side as a hobby, but now you're probably seriously thinking about doing it somehow as a full-time job. As someone who used to be in the reviewing industry, I would say if this is your dream, it is probably best not to fully chase it, because you have to be the 1% of the 1% before you start actually making not just decent money, but survivable money. First, let's talk about how exactly you would review the product, because in my head, you fall into one or more of these three categories. You are either a forum reviewer, an article reviewer, or a content creator, aka talking straight into a camera. First, let's talk about how I actually started, and that is as a forum reviewer, and this includes websites like Reddit. In the headphones and earphones hobby, arguably the biggest discussion forum would be headfi.org. This is the forum that I had published my very first reviews, and I had made a grand total of $0 from them. I think at this point, I'm kind of calling out to Captain Obvious. You are not going to make any money as a forum reviewer, whether you're posting on headfi.org or even on Reddit. No one is going to pay you. There is no advertising, and there is no one trying to make a brand deal with you. That said, it's still one of the best ways and most cost-effective ways to get eyes on you, especially within the enthusiast space. People on discussion forums tend to be more senior and more knowledgeable, and if you manage to have a reputation there, that reputation can kind of trickle down into the other more mainstream areas. But in terms of the earning potential, it is literally zero. Headfi and Reddit earn the money, not you. My next step from being a forum reviewer would be to become an article reviewer. That means having an actual dedicated website and then writing articles on said website. You could go about this in multiple different ways, one of which would be to be an actual paid writer on an already established site, for example, with Artings, with Sound Guys, God forbid what hi-fi. But I would argue that in terms of being an influencer or even a content creator, your branding will always be tied to the person that actually hired you. So if you're someone who works for Sound Guys, for example, and writes articles and generates all the measurements for them, no one would actually really think about you specifically. But that's the thing, you still earn money. You are salaried. You are getting cash for doing what is probably something that you love. But at that point, your salary as well as your own reputation is kind of capped. So the other alternative, which is what I did, was to create my own website, crinacle.com. At that point, yes, all the money that you earn will be all yours for the taking. But then there is the question of how exactly do you make money from your own website? I'll be peeling back quite a bit of the curtain at this point, which could get quite dry because I'll be getting into topics like ad monetization and the likes. So for those of you who want to skip that, refer to the timestamps below. So the number one way that websites make money out of you, the dear reader, is through ads. Kind of obvious at this point. But what you need to understand is that there's also levels to this shit. Level 1 would be general Google AdSense. This is something that you kind of just throw code straight into your website and hope to God that Google gets you some money, I guess. AdSense is fine. Anyone can just kind of slap AdSense onto their website and make, what, couple of cents? Maybe $1. But obviously, if you're looking to make this your full-time job, AdSense is not going to cut it. For reference, before I had leveled up myself, I was earning like what, $300 a month on crinacle.com. So what is the next step up? Well, we have something called ad networks. Ad networks are basically companies that manage the ads that appear on your website. For those of you in the YouTube industry, this is similar to an MCM, but they actually do something. There are many ad networks that would be vying for your attention as a big website owner. For example, there's Mediavine, there's also Easioic, but the one that I went with would be AdThrive, now called Raptive. If you do get partnered with a reputable ad network, they do multiply your website revenue by literal magnitudes. On my best month on AdSense, I was making like what, $400 a month maybe? But on Raptive, I was hitting 6,000. USD, by the way. And I wasn't even considered a big website by their standards. I wasn't cracking like 1 million visitors a month. But when I was doing articles on crinacle.com and at my peak, I was truly thriving. But now I have to remind all of you that this is not the norm. I am the 1% of the 1% of audio reviewers. And in general, my website, crinacle.com, at the time was the top few headphone review sites in the world. As a one-man show, this money was great. But in contrast with all the other websites with teams behind them, this money is peanuts. Hey, Crin from the future here. You'll be seeing me pop up a few times in this video because clearly I am a very new YouTuber and I don't know how to do my job. So there's something that I missed out about running your own website, and that is the third-party hosted website, like for example, medium.com or wordpress.com. In these cases, of course, you get absolutely nothing. If you do want to run ads on your own website as well as your own website post, what you have to do is to self-host. What that means is you have to buy your own server, run it on a layer, for example, maybe WordPress. And at that point, you have the complete freedom to insert any kind of ad code you want on your own website. But of course, I also recognize that running your own website complete with your own hosting is one magnitude higher in difficulty compared to just having someone else do it for you instead. I myself have spent many months setting up and optimizing my own website, crinacle.com, to what I'll consider little success. And clearly, I am not a programmer in any way, shape, or form, but the website works with a lot of band-aid fixes, but it works. And that's it from me for now. Back to you, past Crinacle. So let's talk about what would probably be the patron saint of many content creators, and that is literally Patreon. Because really the best way for influencers and content creators to earn money is to have their very audience donate to them out of the kindness of their hearts. Of course, there are alternatives to the big P. For example, you have Subscribestar as well as the website where you could be OnlyFans with your favorite content creator. And make no mistake, people can make bank out of this. The most prominent example within our small industry would probably be Dankpots, who has just a $1 tier, but he provides basically so much content that so many people decide to subscribe to him. You also have the great Z Reviews, who has managed to purchase a big ass house purely from his Patreon earnings. Clearly, when it comes to people wanting to support their favorite creator, there is a lot of money to be made out of that. Patreon on my side was also fairly lucrative, but it didn't match up to the heights of the website ad revenue that I was getting. It is still great support, and I thank many of my long-standing supporters even till today. But really the key takeaway is that all of this money can really be had from the top 1% of content creators. Arguably, if you're someone with 10,000 subscribers or even less than that, you are not going to be earning that kind of money. Not in the long shot. And the final frontier, at least in my perspective, would be in content creation. When you post on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, you get eyes that would have otherwise not be even remotely interested in you finally watching your content. And that's the main reason why I came to YouTube. I love writing articles on my website, but at some point I was stagnating hard because I was at the whims of the great Google SEO. But now I'm at the whims of the great Google algorithm. And I'm sure many of you at this point would express extreme interest in trying to become the next YouTube star, the next TikTok influencer, or just going viral on Instagram. But let me tell you, when it comes to all of these platforms, you do not make good money. Let's put things into perspective. On YouTube, if you want to purely earn money, you have to go into long form content, which is the content that you are watching right now. The rates for long form content can also vary wildly based on who actually watches your content. For example, when it comes to the holy grail of YouTube audiences, that has to be the Americans. The American viewer is considered the most valuable viewer in YouTube's eyes. They pay out the most relative to every other country. Contrast this with viewers from developing countries with less purchasing power, and your RPMs can drop like a rock. RPM stands for revenue per mile, which is the money that you can get for every 1,000 views. So let's say that there are two different YouTubers targeting two different audiences. One is based in America, while the other one is based in India. Even if both of these YouTubers get the same amount of views, the money that both of them earn would be worlds apart. So it's very hard for me to say exactly how much money you could earn from YouTube because that is down to many different factors, one of which would be, again, your own demographic. And not only just your audience, but also the content that you create, because different kinds of content also have different RPMs. Right at the top of the RPM charts, you have stuff like finance and real estate, while right at the bottom, you have stuff like gaming, because everyone wants to be a gaming streamer. Within our niche, the RPMs hover around $2 to $3 per 1,000 views, which if you look at my views, they are okay, I guess, but not money that you can survive on your own. And again, I am probably one of the top content creators in the headphones and earphones hobby. If I can barely pay my bills on this money, you as an upstart would probably have no chance. And all of this is just talking about long form content, which is the content that I make. If you're talking about YouTube Shorts or TikToks, the chance is zero. Because as far as I know, Shorts RPMs are absolutely terrible. I'm talking like cents, couple tens of cents per 1,000 views. Your average YouTube Shorts creator would probably be earning around a couple $100 per million views. I don't even have 1 million views a month. I'm hovering at like 500,000. And if all of them were Shorts views, YouTube wouldn't even be paying me because I wouldn't even be close to their minimum threshold. So then how would you as an influencer be able to make the money that you see all of these other influencers are throwing around? Well, you go for brand deals, like Hangout.audio. You've seen it all around. You could do an ad read like Hangout.audio is the best online audio retailer in the world. And honestly, if I maxed out my ad reads for the given month, I think that brand deals would have made up the majority of revenue that I was earning during my reviewing days. But then the question is how much can you actually earn from a brand deal? Because a lot of these things are also kind of behind a black box. Obviously, rates and calculations will vary from industry to industry, industry, but from when I was doing brand deals during my reviewing days, we went with something called the average RPM model. So what the brands would do is that they would look for the average number of views that I could get from the last, let's say, 5 videos or so, and then multiply it with an RPM number that would be way higher than anything AdSense could throw at me. So for example, if the brand's RPM number is $10 and I could average 100,000 views per video, then the brand would offer me $1,000 per ad read, for example. And at that point, it is your job or my job to start negotiating. You could say that, oh, my next video is going to get a ton more views. Or they could say that, oh, the RPM number, we could haggle on that. And that's where we start to get into a proper brand deal. And most of the time, I would say all of the time, that one brand deal would eclipse my entire month's AdSense revenue easily. So next time you see an ad read from your favorite YouTuber and get a bit miffed, just remember it's okay to be mad, but there's also context behind it. Hello, I'm back again, and I realized that I've been talking a lot about brand deals in the context of long form content, but I haven't really touched on the other side, and that is on the short form stuff. Well, yes, there's the average RPM method that we can kind of use with long form content. In terms of the short form stuff in TikTok as well as Instagram, I have to say outright, it is extremely arbitrary. I'm gonna use an example in the form of a 100,000 follower account on Instagram, for example. The range of money they can get out of a brand deal in this context varies wildly. On one hand, I've heard of many micro influencers accepting maybe $100, maybe $200 for a post. And then on the other hand, I've also heard tens of thousands of dollars being thrown around for like a bundle deal, maybe 5 to 10 posts. So it's really hard for me to give a number on how much you can earn in a brand deal for an Instagrammer or a TikToker, because all that is really up to how you can market yourself to the brand that you're trying to promote. So you could be someone who has to go with the quantity over quality approach and have to do, like, let's say a couple $100 per post and kind of just shotgun it over the course of an entire month. Or you could be a very high following influencer and brands see the value in your promotion and are willing to pay thousands, if not tens of thousands, for maybe even just a single post. At the end of the day, even though I have said a lot, I have to honestly admit that I don't have a lot of information on the TikTok, Instagram brand deal industry. All of the anecdotes that I've said is based on talks that I have with my own influencer friends. I'm not saying whether or not it's true, but at least it's from a different perspective. All right, I won't hold any more of your time. Back to you, Past Crinacle. So now let's go on to the drawing board and talk about how much you can expect to make as an influencer going forward. Again, if you're someone who's exclusively posting on forums and Reddit, you gain absolutely nothing. It's purely for the love of the game. If you're someone who wants to write articles and reviews as a full-time job, you could get hired by one of the established boys, in which case, I don't know what their rates are. And if you're running your own website, it also depends on whether or not you're going with basic ads like with Google AdSense, or if you have partnered with an ad network that would have gotten you much better rates. If you're someone looking to do YouTube content, AdSense also doesn't pay too much. If you're someone who's barely breaking over 100,000 views a month on long form, you're barely making a few $100s a month. If you want to try and become a shorts YouTuber or a TikToker, you are earning nothing. Not in our niche. You are earning nothing. If you're a content creator looking to do a brand deal, that would be probably the best avenue in which you could actually earn some decent cash. Rates fluctuate wildly. I don't want to put out a number for you, but it could vary from a couple of $100s to a few thousand, maybe even tens of thousands if you can prove your value to the brand. And then finally, there is Patreon, which is also highly dependent on how much your own audience is willing to support you financially. Or you could be someone with a few million subscribers, but no one actually coming to your Patreon to support you. Hello again. This will be the last time I'll be popping up. I will just be talking about the other ways that you can potentially make money that I haven't already talked about in the rest of the video. First, let's talk about the way that you would commonly see in a lot of YouTubers, at least back in the day, not so much today, and that is with merch. Merch, in a very simplified way, is when an influencer slaps their own brand onto products that kind of already exist and serves as a way for you, the audience, to support their favorite creator. Merch by itself is supposed to be very overpriced because they come from a product that already exists. For example, a hoodie. You slap a brand on there and then you sell it to your audience. Plain and simple. But if you're talking about in the context of a reviewer, as a product reviewer, let me just say, merch does not work. Even the biggest influencers are not spared from this curse. For example, you know Marcus Brownlee, MKBHD, he tried to release an app, a wallpaper app that you're supposed to pay for, and clearly it didn't work. So while it is a way for the audience to support their favorite creator, in today's economy, I don't think a lot of people are happy with paying that extra premium. And even for myself, I am ready to say that the hoodie that I kind of been wearing, and I do sell this hoodie, has not made much. Honestly, I don't even know how much I made from hoodies. Here's a screenshot from the amount I made from Teespring or Spring. Yeah, this not a lot. Now we go into the more gray areas of how you can monetize your content as a product reviewer. And the next one is something that I've actually talked about at length on the very first video on this channel, affiliate links. For those of you who don't know, when you click on an affiliate link, which is generated by the creator, and then you buy something from that link, a cut of the revenue goes to that creator. For a very long time in the audio sphere, a lot of creators have actually relied on affiliate links to generate most of their income. And I did talk about it at length in my video discussing about all of this. And my thinking is that affiliate links would undoubtedly bias what would have been an unbiased review. I wouldn't go too deep into it, but the short view of it is that I believe that if you put an affiliate link into a review, you are incentivized to talk good about the review because that makes people want to click on that link and then buy from that link. And therefore your review will be skewed to be more positive. Whether or not it is ethical or moral is in a completely different discussion, which is why I said that it's in a gray area. But at the end of the day, it is a way for you to make money from a product review. My next point will be even more of a gray area. I'll argue goes straight into the black area, and that is selling your own review units. Because as a product reviewer, you will get free stuff coming into you for review. And therefore, after that, you have a stockpile of a lot of brand new shiny toys. And what do you do with them? If you were more unscrupulous, you would just sell them off for cash. I am, of course, absolutely not a proponent of this. This incentivizes you to absolutely talk good about the things that you review. In fact, all of the things that you talk about would have to be positive in order for you to sell them off. But again, discussion on whether or not it's moral or ethical is not in this video. It is, however, a way for you to make money out of product reviews. And lastly, probably the worst one, and that is getting paid to do the reviews themselves. So obviously getting paid for a good positive review is the ultimate no-no in this industry. The moment you're found out, the moment people know that you're doing this, you will be instantly excommunicated. Because who the hell would trust your reviews at that point? People would just say, he said good things about that because he got paid. But here's where I kind of play the devil's avocado and say that there is kind of a small, narrow definition of a gray area that you could play. Kind of. Now, I'm not saying it's moral, I'm not saying it's ethical. Again, a completely different discussion. But what you could do as a product reviewer is that you could charge brands to bump themselves up the product review queue. There's a lot of arguments against this as well. For example, simply receiving money from a brand would mean that you're just slightly biased towards them. Maybe you just give them a little slack, give them a bit of extra positivity in your reviews. It's very hard to talk about the individual reviewer's morality and neutrality, but in the context of this video, yes, this is absolutely a way for you to make money as a reviewer. Either accepting money in exchange for a good review or accepting money in exchange for bumping them up the review queue. These are all of the darker ways in which you can make money from product reviews. I am not condoning any of them, but yeah, these are options that exist. Back to you, Past Critical. There's so much variance in the stuff that I have discussed about, and quite honestly, my final advice is this. If you're someone who's looking just to earn money, get a day job. I would say being a content creator is great. You have freedom, you do something creative, and for some people, it is a lot of self-fulfillment. But at the same time, it is an industry with an extremely low barrier of entry, which means your competition is literally any schmuck that can be on the street right now. But for those of you who are in the audiophile hobby, have amassed a small following, and would like to attempt to make this your full-time job, email me. No, I'm serious. email me, and just maybe, Hangout.audio could sponsor some of your content. And that is my spiel. Content creation is difficult, and it takes quite a bit of luck to get a sizable following. And even more luck on top of that to monetize said following. So for many of the youngsters that are watching my content right now, it's okay to dream. I think it's great to kind of fantasize about being a big influencer. But when it comes down to it, I hope this serves as kind of a reality check. And just to prove my point, let me just shout out my big money boys. Here are all of you who have subscribed to the $20 tier on my Patreon. Look at them. Look at them. Look at how many there are right now. Thank you, by the way, but still, look at how many there are. And for those of you who have subscribed to the $30 tier, allow me to speak out your beautiful names: Dennis, crinacle, Andrew, Like Pizza, Seraphine, Chemotherapy, and Daryl. I thank you all. I'll see all of you guys next week, and don't die. Fuck off.